Welcome back to physical geography. In our previous lectures, we've explored denudation and weathering processes that break down rock material at Earth's surface. Today, we're going to take the next step and we're going to examine the denudation sequence of mass wasting. Mass wasting is the downslope movement of broken rock material under the influence of gravity. So think of it as the middle step in our three-step denudation process. Weathering breaks down the rock, mass wasting works to move the rock down slope, and erosion carries it away. So while not as dramatically visible as volcanic eruptions or earthquakes, mass wasting reshapes our landscapes constantly and occasionally produces catastrophic events that directly impact human lives and infrastructure. So let's get back to our slides. Yes. So before diving into specific types of mass wasting, we need to understand some key concepts. So every loose material on a slope has what's called an angle of repose. It's the steepest angle at which loose material remains stable without moving down slope. So this angle varies with the nature and internal cohesion of the material. For example, dry sand has an angle of a repose of about 30 to 35 degrees. Wet clay can maintain a much steeper angles due to its cohesive properties. Angular rock fragments can stack at steeper angles than rounded pebbles. All right, so what triggers mass wasting events? Well, several factors can prompt movement. The first is the accumulation of additional material on a slope. As material builds up, it eventually exceeds the angle of repose and moves down slope. So we see this in construction sites where dumped soil forms a characteristic cone shape and that's the angle of repose in action, okay? Second, the addition of water is perhaps the most common trigger. Water increases the weight of the material and reduces the friction between particles. And this is why mass wasting is particularly likely during and after heavy rains. The devastating landslides in California's coastal ranges often follow intense winter storms for precisely this reason. Other factors include the composition of the slope material, with clay being particularly problematic. Quick clays are especially dangerous. These clay formations can spontaneously change from a relatively solid mass into near liquid conditions after a sudden disturbance or shock. In colder regions, the heavy action of frozen groundwater in permafrost areas can trigger movement. So the extent of activity and the rate of movement in mass wasting varies considerably. From fastest to slowest, we categorize mass wasting as fall, slide, flow, and creep. So we're going to examine each type now, starting with falls. Falls represent the simplest, most obvious, and the fastest form of mass wasting. So this is literally rock or soil or fragments falling freely through the air from a steep slope or cliff face. Now, when rock pieces fall, they often don't fall far before becoming lodged, though this lodging can also be unstable and temporary. The accumulated fallen material is called talus or scree. Over time, these fragments can accumulate relatively uniformly along the base of slopes, forming what we call a talus slope or a talus apron. More characteristically, the fragments form sloping cone-shaped heaps known as talus cones. So, Yosemite National Park provides a dramatic example of rock falls. In 1996, a massive rock fall sent 162,000 tons of granite plummeting from Glacier Point, creating an air blast that knocked over 1,000 trees. More recently, in 2017, a rock fall from El Capitan killed one person and injured several others. Now, interestingly, rock falls appeared to be becoming more commonplace in certain mountain areas as the climate warms. Scientists believe this increase is associated with the greater melting of ice deep within talus cones and mountain rock features and mountain rock fractures. As this ice melts, it removes the support that previously held loose rock in place. And in some cases, accumulated talus can begin to move very slowly downslope, creating what we call rock glaciers. These are extremely slow-moving flows of talus caused by gravity and freeze and thaw cycles in these mountain regions. And you can see excellent examples of rock glaciers in Colorado's San Juan Mountains. Next type is slides. So this is the next category and the second fastest, where material moves downslope as a relatively coherent mass along a well-defined surface. So landslides are abrupt, rapid, and often catastrophic events in which large masses of rock and earth slide rapidly downhill in only a few seconds or minutes, essentially an instantaneous collapse of a slope. Many landslides are triggered by heavy rains, which add that extra weight to the slope and reduce the friction between the particles. The aftermath of major landslides typically include a distinctive scar where the slide originated, and a pile of debris at the valley bottom. And sometimes we see a lake on the up valley side of the debris where water flow has been blocked. The 1980 landslide at Mount St. Helens is probably the most famous American example. The volcanic eruption triggered a massive landslide, the largest landslide in recorded history. And it moved at speeds of 110 to 155 miles per hour and transported enough material to bury the entire island of Manhattan 400 feet deep. Huge and very fast moving. So on a smaller but more common scale, we have what we call our slumps. And a slump is a slope collapse in which rock or regolith moves downward and also rotates outward along a curved surface that has a concave side facing upward. Okay, so it's almost like as if you were slumped down in your chair. Okay, if I were to slump down in my chair, I have a concave upward body and a lower curved outward body on the front. Okay, so slumps are extremely common forms of mass wasting, especially along highway road cuts where you can often see the characteristic curved failure surface and backward rotated blocks. A classic example of slumping can be seen all along California's Pacific Coast Highway, particularly in the area of Big Sur, where portions of the road they frequently require repair due to slumping of the coastal bluff. So if you're ever headed up north, always check if they are doing construction and repairing some of these slumps. So the next up and next slower in speed are flows. These are not as spectacular as falls and slides, but they are very conspicuous. In flows, the material behaves more like a fluid, with particles moving independently within the flowing mass. Flows can be rapid, but they are normally gradual and sluggish. They characteristically cover several tens of hundreds of acres and can cause extensive damage to property and infrastructure. The most common flow movement is an earth flow. And this is where a portion of water saturated slope moves a limited distance downhill, usually triggered by a heavy rain. Earth flows typically have a spoon-shaped scar at their head and a bulging toe at their base. The La Conchita earth flow in California in 2005 buried homes and killed 10 people, and this was an earth flow. In arid regions and semi-arid regions, we often see what we call mudflows, and this is downslope movements of thick mixtures of soil and water. These are very scary. So these typically occur when a heavy rain follows a long dry spell. So these oftentimes happen in desert regions where we have long periods of very dry weather, and then we have a flash flood, okay? A lot of rain all at once. Now, the soil in these areas cannot absorb the sudden influx of water. So instead, the soil is picked up by the runoff and carried, creating this viscous mass that just flows downhill. Mudflows can travel up to speeds of 50 miles per hour in steep channels and have the consistency of wet concrete. When a mud flow contains many large pieces of sediment, including rocks and boulders, we often call it a debris flow. And these are particularly dangerous because of their high density and the ability to transport large objects. I've seen videos of them picking up large cars and boulders and things like that. The 2018 Montecito debris flow in Southern California, which followed a major wildfire, killed 23 people and destroyed over 100 homes. So what happens is these arid lands have kind of a buildup of debris and exfoliated materials that are sitting there. And when we have a massive rain, it just picks everything up because the soil cannot absorb that moisture as quickly, okay? There are actually people who live out in the desert and go chasing these mud flows or debris flows. It is very dangerous because they are extremely unpredictable. And oftentimes, when there is a flash flood, the flash flood can happen well upstream and you won't have any rain happening downstream, but downstream that debris is just flowing downhill. All right, moving along. Next, we have creep, okay? Yes, so finally we come to creep, the slowest and the least perceptible form of mass wasting. Creep consists of very gradual downhill movement of soil and regolith, so slow that it's imperceptible to the human eye, yet over time its effects become quite noticeable. So creep occurs all over the world on slopes, and it's caused by various factors. The most significant factor is a freeze-thaw action. So during wet and dry cycles that cause soil particles to move slightly with each cycle, okay? Gravity also has a constant pull. Burrowing animals can loosen the soil. Plant roots can grow and shift soil. Even vibrations from earthquakes and thunder can contribute to creep. Now, the process is very slow, perhaps just millimeters every year, but it is faster on water-saturated slopes. Because of its gradual nature, the results of creep are usually only recognized by the displacement of human-built structures. So when you're looking for creep, look for tented fence poles. So the fence or utility pole. So the fence pole is put in vertically And as the creep occurs, if it's creeping downhill, the utility pole or the fence poles will start to lean, okay? Another evidence of creep are cracked foundations and retaining walls. Also, bent tree trunks. They will curve at the base and then grow straight upward. Roads and railways that require frequent realignment are a result of creep. On steep grassy slopes, creep can produce complicated terracing effect called terracets, and they resemble a network of little faint trails. And these features are often accentuated by grazing animals. In the tundra region, so in our northern regions, a special form of creep is called solifluction. And this produces a distinctive surface appearance. During the summer, near the surface portion of the ground will thaw. And so this is in areas where we have permafrost. So during the summers, the surface portion will thaw, but the meltwater from that thawing cannot percolate deeper because of the permafrost below. So the spaces between the soil particles become saturated, and the heavy surface material starts to sag and slowly move down slope, creating characteristic lobes and terraces. Alaska's North Slope shows excellent examples of this creep, where with distinctive tongue-like appearances. So as we have seen, mass wasting encompasses a wide range of processes, from dramatic rockfalls and catastrophic landslides to almost the imperceptible creep of soil down a gentle slope. Yet all of these processes share a common driver: gravity's pull on Earth's surface materials. Understanding mass wasting is crucial not just for geographers and geologists, but for engineers, urban planners, and anyone living in a hilly or mountainous terrain. You'll want to understand these processes if you're looking to buy a house with a nice, beautiful view on top of a hill. So many of the world's deadliest natural disasters have been mass wasting events triggered by earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or just heavy rainfall. So this concludes our Chapter 15 lecture. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next chapter's videos.